What's up, everybody? Brian Tong here, and I am here in stop and go traffic because I just am driving back home and it's been raining and even hailing after the Rivian R2 reveal and the reveal of the new R3 and R3X, which was a surprise for everyone. So this happened at the in Laguna Beach at Rivian's retail shop, but it's been a restored theater, and so that's where the crowd came and they had this nice stage where the cars came out. But look, this is the reveal of what we first expected: Rivian's midsize SUV R2 platform, and you'll have a 5-seater SUV. And what they're doing is basically taking all the learnings and a lot of things from the R1 platform. I'm in my own R1T, so the R1T and the R1S, those originals. But now the R2 is a scaled down version. It's shorter in size, but also some of the tech now has been, if you look at the R1 as kind of the top class, the R2 has taken some of those things out, but guess what? It's going to be a whole lot more affordable. Rivian says it's coming out starting at $45,000. If you look at the R1T and the R1S, those start at $74,500 before you start configuring them. So the R2 is their next generation midsize SUV. And when you look at this car, it obviously clearly has all the DNA of what you expect in a Rivian. It looks like as if you took an R1S and kind of just like took the corners and shrunk it down. That's what it would look like. But when you get up close to it, there's a lot of clever things. I think they really lean into functionality here and learnings from the R1 series of what they could do different. And so you'll have things where, yes, there is no truck bed, but if you go in the trunk, you can actually pull out, I guess you would call it that base, and pull it out. And what it acts as is just like the R1T has a truck where you can maybe fold down the back, sit on it, relax, put a coffee or something like that. Well, here you pull out that base and then it creates like a seating area for you. Also, you still can lift it up. You get access to, storage space underneath. And then the cool thing about the R2 is that you can completely lay everything flat. So we're talking about the back seats, and the front seats even completely fold over. You can actually remove the head seat, or I guess the headrest here on the driver's seat, and then fold it down completely flat. So this, unlike any other car, right, it is smaller in size, but you still get a lot of the functionality and versatility. You could literally lay completely flat inside that car if you wanted to. There's also some really cool touches inside. The first thing, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is the fact that the steering wheel is different, right? You have these kind of like two larger dials that you'll use to navigate the R2. What it allows you to do, as they said, is it's software and haptics connected. So when you scroll those two dials, let's say it's something like volume level and you hit all the way to the highest level, well, it'll physically stop you from scrolling it any further. And so it's a system that is going to grow and evolve with software, but the steering wheel looks totally different. Obviously, we didn't really get to experience it, but I thought that was cool. And then one of my big bugaboos in the R1T, where's the glove compartment? Well, guess what? They're like, hey, we're not going to give you one glove compartment. We're going to give you two. So you get two in the R2. Interior looks very similar. You got the similar mats, similar leather seating, vegan leather seating. Just overall, though, this car, from the look and feel of it, design, it feels like a Rivian car. Now, also so that you're aware, the R2 is only right now this midsize SUV, 5 seats. There is no 7-seater. There is no truck version. Their chief design officer talked about how, yes, because it's a new platform, it does give them the ability to experiment with other things. He talked to some of the press directly, but of course he said there's nothing to announce at the time. Now, I'll tell you also another exciting thing is the accessories, and we always know that Rivian has been very modular to add different ways to, connect different gear like skis or bikes. Well, there's always been a big bugaboo of, setting up a bike rack, putting on a bike rack, putting the bikes on the rack, and the headache that goes with that. On the back end, just under the tail bumper, there are these two little, I guess you could say, like holes or ports. And from what we gather, you're going to be able to actually, if you purchase it, take their new bike rack accessory, push it into those ports, at the bottom of the bumper, those ports also supply power. So there's a light system for brake lights that they can see while the bike rack is in place. And then because it's modular, there's potential for using those ports for other things. Also, on the side of the door, you will still get the flashlight in the R2, but they said that they'll also have a different accessory that's a USB-C charger slash hand warmer that could also be put in that position as well. Another cool thing, look, I bought the R1T because I wanted and I fell in love with this idea of a camp kitchen. Well, what they're doing now is I asked them directly, what's going on with the camp kitchen, and they had talked about a kitchen in the R2, but I'm thinking, well, okay, what about the R1? And they did say they don't have any more details to give out, but there will be a kitchen element that they will be announcing in the future that is compatible with both the R1 and the R2 car lineup. So that means that everyone that's been waiting, they didn't give us a timetable, but the kitchen is not dead. They said it was on the back burner, but it will be coming. And it, at least from what it sounds like with the R2, it's some sort of system that will be coming out of the trunk. And I don't know if you remember, but there were patents that leaked out of Rivian working on some sort of a trunk-based kitchen. So we'll find out more later. There's obviously Rivian design elements here. If you look at the front of the R2, the actual hood, there's basically this line that is required, I guess, from overseas in the EU or over in Europe. And what they did is they kind of played off that line to then be a detailed design all the way through to the back. And then it's also made to be very, a very airy and open experience. They're making this a little smaller, but they still want it to feel big. So what's really cool, the rear window on the trunk, that completely comes down. And then the rear quarter panels, those windows also vent open. So you're gonna get a lot of airflow. These are things that just didn't exist in the R1S, pretty much like the inspiration for at least this R2. So you can see a lot of functionality stuff happening. I think the biggest thing that they said, what's the biggest difference, that, they obviously had to take something away from the R1 going over to the R2 because just the price alone. And they said the biggest thing is the air suspension system in the R1T that allows the car to lift and adjust, I think, as low as 7.9 inches and as high as 14.4 inches. And then obviously even that compensation where if you're camping and it compensates for like the angle, that will not be part of the R2. So the suspension will be different, but they're saying, hey, just wait till you ride in it. It still feels great, but obviously no matter what, that's going to be a little different. And I think most people who have been curious about a Rivian car, if you're removing that suspension aspect, which is huge for the R1T, they're kind of treating the R1T as the premium line still. Look, that cuts off over $30,000 off the initial starting price tag. I think a lot of people are more than willing to trade that off. So the R2 expected to get 300 plus miles of range, starts again at $45,000 and will be available sometime in the first half of 2026. You can put down a $100 deposit to get on the wait list. And then in addition to that, if you're a current Rivian owner, you get put on like a priority delivery list. So it bumps you up a little higher in that queue. But then, Rivian's like, oh yeah, in case you like to read the rumor blogs, we're gonna give you something that you had no idea about. And they showcased the R3. This is Rivian's subcompact that shares the same platform with the R2 model that was also revealed earlier, but its wheelbase here is 5 inches shorter. This to me looks and feels like their version of like what a Subaru WRX would be, and it looks really slick. It has this look and feel of, is it like a hatchback? Is it a wagon? And again, their chief design officer said, hey, look, when we designed this, when we looked at, we didn't even know what it is. It just was R3. So they're really leaning into this idea of like, it kind of is what the user wants, but it's also its own unique thing. The styling of this car still has, right, the Rivian headlights. It still looks like a Rivian car, but just, kind of like it's not a roadster per se, but that subcompact, you could totally see someone go off-roading with this thing. It just looks great. They didn't give us many details about it. The understanding is that the R3 lineup will be available sometime in maybe 2027. We don't know that, but if you're looking at the R2 lineup being available early or the first half of 2026, that would probably line up before we see anything R3 related. But check out the stylings, this kind of frosty Arctic blue look, and then even something like the trunk. You can pull the trunk all the way open, but there's a feature where just the glass of this R3 pops open, so you don't have to open the entire trunk. You can just reach in, and they said that's also used for, since this car is also smaller in size, still using the R2 platform, but because it's shorter, if you're carrying like a surfboard or whatnot, you can have it still stick out the back. Then they're like, oh yeah, we still have another thing, and I guess you could call this almost like the performance model. We don't know all the specs. Again, they just threw it out to us, just gave us that, just something a little bit to tease, to chew on, and the R3X looks incredible. If there was another car that I was gonna buy, I'm not in the market for a car, it has to be the R3X. This is sportier and clearly geared more towards that outdoorsy adventure off-road driving spirit compared to the regular R3, with their 3 electric motors here, wider wheels and tires, and then a higher ground clearance. The styling, right? It is an R3, but you have that teal color. You have these orange accents on the rear view mirrors. Then you have things like, if you look at just the interior, it's the dash is not that wood grain that we're used to. It has this like almost cork like looking material. The seats are leather and they're kind of ribbed. They look more performance style. They have silver and orange rivets and details. There's straps on the back side of the seats for you to attach different things. The styling, I mean, I got in as much as I could because they didn't open it up for us. The R3X looks incredible. And then when you think about pricing, okay, the R2 is going to start at $45,000. I've got to imagine that the R3 is smaller than the R2, more compact. Maybe they never said this, but maybe it's something around $35,000 to $40,000. But R3X, a peek in the future, available, maybe guesstimating 2027. So if I missed anything, forgive me. I mean, I'm literally kind of heading back now, but that was my first time ever at any car event, and you see how technology and cars, this is a match made in heaven. It is quite honestly the most exciting space in tech right now. So looking forward to see what happens when we'll actually see these cars. Rivian still has a lot to get through just as a company, but the ethos, the world, and their brand and their perspective, it's really unique, and the technology and the design is top tier. So we'll see what happens, but there you go. That is my wrap up, just to give you a little quick insight of what happened at the Rivian event, and hopefully got some new nuggets as well. All right, take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.